Thank you very much for having me at the Software Architecture Gathering Conference. This time around, unfortunately, in a remote setting. Usually I like to hang out with folks at conferences and chat to every one of you, but I mean, let's be honest, we're used to that. And I came up with an idea how to do this session a little bit more interactive with everyone, so it's not just going to be me talking about the topic of quality storming. You will also have opportunities to join into the session and contribute your insights, your learnings, and stuff like that. Just a few words about myself. My name is Michael Plöd. I work as a fellow at INNOQ, and I've been around in the software architecture area for quite some years. And one thing that I always realized, that working with quality requirements is sometimes really hard, and it's hard to get them. And when you ask domain experts or other stakeholders of your software architecture for quality requirements or so-called non-functional requirements, you often get very extreme opinions on things, and you often get requirements that are hard to work with. So I came up with an idea for a workshop method, and I called that quality storming. And I want to introduce you to this method in this talk. But before I jump into the slides and the content, I want you to join this talk. So please grab your smartphones, your tablets, or whatever you have in your hands, scan this QR code and join those slides. You can do that either by scanning the QR code or by entering the URL that you see on the top of over there. You can easily join this talk. And one thing which makes this remote setting a little bit awkward is that you don't get the emotions of the audience, and you don't see people how they react when you talk about things. And so you also have this opportunity to react with when you agree with something, or when you want to smile or something, with all those emotions. So please keep that stuff coming in so that I see, exactly like that I see how you resonate with the stuff that I talk, because usually I see people smiling or shaking their head in disbelief when I talk some nonsense or stuff like that. And I will also add questions to this talk, where you are supposed to reflect on the stuff that I talk about, where I want to have your opinion on certain things. So please join in. I will move this slide away in a few seconds, but you will always see the URL at the top. So if you want to join in later on, this is not a lost opportunity by now. A couple of years ago, I saw a really funny tweet by Lincoln Stahl, and Lincoln wrote down, the solution Kafka, the problem you tell me. And this is something that I see very, very often when I talk to teams developing software, writing code, and discussing technological options, architecture options, certain architecture patterns. There's a lot of passion and emotion sometimes involved in those discussions. And sometimes I'm a little bit of the grumpy guy to the side who asks, okay, those are interesting ideas that you have. Which of your quality requirements are you going to solve with technology X, architecture pattern Y, and so on? So what quality requirement do you want to address with that? What's your goal there? And sometimes I hear, well, we don't know, we don't have any, or I mean, forget about the quality requirements. I get a lot of laughter, and people laugh at me, haha, you don't know our quality requirements. And so I have a first question for you folks. How would you estimate or rate the quality of your non-functional requirements, or the non-functional requirements that you have? Are they non-existent? Are they like, yeah, kind of nice, but forget about them? do you consider them to be neutral, like quite okay-ish? Do you think they are quite good, or do you think that they are excellent? So what's your take on that? So keep those votes coming in. Yeah, no one rates excellent. Always like that. Yeah, some folks voted with a sad smile there. Yeah, isn't that a little bit sad that not too many folks say, yeah, well, they are good or they are excellent? Like most folks say, yeah, well, not so nice, not so good. Yeah, okay, great. At least one said excellent. Great. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the next question that I have for you folks. How do you actually get your non-functional or the quality requirements for your code, like information about availability, scalability, maintainability, security, and so on? What's the path that those requirements reach you as developers or architects? User complaints. As for SLAs, yeah, trial and error, deploy and pray, that's a good one. Habit yourself. Yeah. Checklist ISO 25010. Yeah, I'll get back to that one probably on some of the following slides. Jira or by chance, guessing. Asking over and over again. Workshops, tasks in the backlog. Okay. Dictate them to the customer. That's an interesting one. Talking to people. Yeah, that's a good one. Well-trained product owner. That's always a good thing to have. Right. You analyze similar systems. That's also an interesting take. Yeah. Working based on experience. Workshop with the stakeholders. And this is exactly what I'm going to introduce in this talk. I want to show you a workshop method, which you hopefully after the talk can facilitate in order to get better quality requirements for your system. And this is what quality storming is all about. So basically, quality storming picks up on many ideas from the collaborative modeling area. Yeah, and where we want to combine various skills, various perspectives, various people into collecting quality requirements for software and prioritizing them. Yeah, I think a prioritization is always important as well, because you will have architecture decisions that may affect certain quality requirements in a positive way, but others in a negative way. So if you just boost the negative ones and you have downside on the not so high on the high prio ones, you may run into problem later on, and you're again in the trial and error field. So a big influence for the workshop has been a book called Game Storming by Dave Gray, Sunny Brown, and Chase Makamoto. And this is actually quite a good recommendation for everyone who needs to run workshops. Yeah, I mean, most of those ideas, you can run them in person, you can run them remote on boards like Miro, Mural, or all the good other stuff that's out there on the market nowadays. And also taking up from many ideas from the domain-driven design community. I consider myself to be, a little bit of an active part of that community. And what we from the DDD community have always been propagating was talk to domain experts, talk to customers, get a shared understanding of the business domain. But I think quality requirements are also an important driver and an important factor in the business domain. And so I have built up on some of those ideas and developed that workshop. And I have a next question for you. Who has ever participated in some of those collaborating modeling workshops like event storming and example mapping, user story mapping, domain storytelling, or something like that? Right, so that looks better. Someone voted with a sad smile early on when the no part was quite big. Okay, yeah, so quite a few folks have done that. Others haven't done. So let's go with the assumption of a 60% by 40% rate approximately, which I actually consider to be quite good, to be honest. I mean, of course, I would wish for a higher yes rate, but I've seen so many organizations that don't practice these things, and I consider them to be very valuable. And now I want to jump into the actual part, yeah, for the quality storming workshop. So basically, you have quite a few phases that you should run through. So the first phase that I would suggest to you folks is select a quality model, because it gives you structure for such a workshop. Invite the right participants. Don't just do that with only technical folks. Yeah, invite a wide variety of stakeholders. Make sure that you prepare the workshop. I think a good preparation always goes a long way in many collaborative modeling workshops. Then we run the actual workshop, and then we work with the requirements and refine. So in the next few slides, just a hint, I will focus on running the workshop in an in-person event. But on the end of the presentation, I will also give you some hints how to do that in an online fashion and in a remote setting, working with stuff like Miro or Mural or stuff like that. It works as well. But I think there are more things to keep in mind when you work in person than when you work remotely. Yeah, so that's why I focus very much in an in-presence workshop on those slides. But don't worry, I'll talk about the online version as well. So the first part will be the selection of a quality model. You should take a look. Maybe you already have a quality model as a driving factor for your software architecture in your organization. That's the first thing that I would look out for. Maybe some testers, some quality engineers, or other folks have already propagated such a model for you, and there is something that already exists. If you don't have anything, or you don't have a standard in your organization, I would suggest just go for ISO 25010. Because that's a very widespread thing. Yeah, I think no one gets fired for using that. No one will probably get sued or anything like that for using an ISO standard if you don't have anything at hand. Yeah, of course you can decide that some of those categories are not relevant to you. That's fair enough. That's totally okay. But it gives you some guidance. And it gives you a structure. So most of those quality models that I know of, they have top tier categories and some subcategories with descriptions on them. Yeah, you should have that at hand. And I have another question for you. How do you think that a quality model, working with such a quality model, can help you? I mean, I've already hinted some stuff, but what's your take on that? What do you think? Give me some feedback on that. Great awareness for what's important. Prioritization, checklist structure. Okay. It's awesome that you keep so much stuff coming in. Yeah, that makes the talk a little bit more fun and interactive. Thank you a lot for that, for your input. Yeah, I think most of the people, yeah, that there's more than availability. That's true. Yeah, so that you don't forget that. Yeah, you don't reinvent the wheel, and it helps you to ask the right questions. I mean, there are many template-based ideas around on the market. If you, for instance, look at something like a business model canvas, or in the DDD space, a bounded context design canvas, I don't see those techniques, those things, as a documentation tool. I see them as a guideline that helps me to ask questions from various perspectives that go into my design decisions that I can then go through. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the input. And so that leads us directly to the next phase. Please invite the right folks. What you want to have is a high diversity of stakeholders. And I mean diversity in any way. Yeah. You want various perspectives. You want various opinions. And I think the explicit working with stakeholders is a very important part of your day-to-day architecture work. Yeah. Have a list of your stakeholders. Have a list who are drivers for your architecture. It's not just like the requirements engineers or the end users. Yes, they are important, but you will also have project sponsors that give you the money, yeah, that pay you. You will have folks from the operating, yeah, that give you certain boundaries, yeah, and certain restrictions for your architecture. And those folks have a high degree of experience in terms of quality requirements and stuff that's important. Those folks, they work with SLAs day in, day out, testers and so on. So you want to have a high variety of perspectives of stakeholders who are driving your software architecture. Yeah. And bring in those various perspectives, unite them in such a workshop. And of course, the next question that arises is, of course, how many people do I want to have in that workshop? And I think a good rule of thumb, a good heuristic for that, take the number of the top categories from your quality model. In the case of ISO 25010, that's going to be 8 top categories, and multiply that number by 2 or by 3. So I would say something between 16 and 24 people should be a healthy amount of folks. Yeah, that gives you a lot of input. And then it's time to prepare the actual workshop. Yeah, so please manage the expectations. Tell people what they are going to do. And please also tell them that quality storming is not a silver bullet that solves every problem. That this is not going to be some magical workshops where wonders are going to happen with a magic wand or whatever, and so on. Please manage the expectations, and especially take a look for a suitable room. You want to have, especially in the in-person version, a lot of available space where people can move. Yeah, you need to squeeze in 20 up to 24 folks into that room, and those folks should be able to move. So rooms with wired desks are unsuitable. Don't make that mistake that I once did, and I went into a room and tried to move one of those desks, not seeing that the desk is wired, and suddenly, boom, the circuit breaker flew out, and some sparks were flying around because I pulled the cable in a forceful way. Yeah, so please mind that. Don't fall into that trap. It was quite embarrassing. And make sure that you have all the requirement equipment in place. So a good workshop room has removable desks and chairs. Avoid wired desks. You have sufficient space for participants to move around and is bright. Yeah, don't go into a dark cellar hole or something like that. Yeah. And then in terms of the equipment checklist, what you need is you need one large pinboard. So those moderation walls that can roll around for every top category. In the case of ISO 25101, that's 8 of those. Yeah, You need a printed description of every top and subcategory of the quality model. So that also delivers some examples, some insights, what's there. You need a lot of sticky notes. Color doesn't matter. Yeah. You can use yellow ones, orange ones, green ones. It's not like an event storming workshop that works with a sophisticated color model of the sticky notes. Yeah. Please work with good black pens. Yeah. Don't go ahead and tell people, please bring a pen, because they will bring you something like that, and you can't read the stuff from a distance written with the typical ball pens. I usually work with Sharpies or the 1300 Eddings. Yeah, they are quite good. You need some sticky dots. Yeah, so dots that you can stick around. 1 or 2 flip charts and a bunch of healthy snacks, not snakes, and drinks. Yeah. And then we set up the workshop room like that. Yeah, we put the pin boards in a circle, place some tables with sticky notes in the middle, have some flip charts around for taking notes and writing down some stuff. And you need to prepare each pin board for each topic category like that. Yeah, so you put the top category on top of that and the subcategories down there. And a good hint, please provide some examples to the people. Some exemplified quality requirements, maybe in a sticky note color that you're not going to use throughout of the workshop. Yeah, so that they get some inspiration, some hints. For instance, on the ARC42 GitHub repository, yeah, github.com/ARC42, there is also a project with many example requirements. Yeah, get inspired by that and deliver some examples for the people. And after that, yeah, when everything is prepared, we can start the workshop. Yeah, so what you usually do is you go ahead, have a brief intro, yeah, tell people what's going to happen, and then we're going to collect quality requirements in the broad. We'll consolidate, we'll prioritize, and give people an outlook. Let's jump directly into this broad collection. What are we going to do there? We could also go ahead and call this collection something like a brainstorming. Build people of 2 to 3 folks, yeah, groups, 2 to 3 people, and place each group on one pinboard. And then give them 10 minutes of time to talk to each other and come up with ideas for quality requirements for a given system that they consider to be good, yeah, that they consider to be important, that they consider to be a requirement. Yeah. And make sure, yeah, when you have all the people coming into the room, yeah, that you don't work with the groups, how they are standing around in the room and how they are chatting with each other. Because what's going to happen? The developers will hang together, the testers will hang together, the business folks will hang together. Mix them up. Yeah, I don't want to see groups of 2 developers, of 3 business analysts together. I want to have a group with 1 people from the ops department, 1 from the business domain department, and someone from the development department, or an UX expert together with a tester or an end user or something like that. Bring different perspectives together, yeah, because they can help each other also in finding good requirements. Yeah, because especially in the first run, yeah, because every one of those groups will spend approximately 10 minutes in front of each board. The first 10 to 20 minutes, the first 1 to 2 runs, they will be a little bit awkward. Yeah, maybe you will have to work with some ice-breaking techniques so that they get talking, that there is a flow coming in and stuff like that. Maybe you start as a facilitator sticking totally nonsense quality requirements where everyone says, oh, no, that's utter bullshit. Yeah. And then you ask them, okay, this is bullshit. What do you consider to be reasonable? Let's talk. Okay, let's write that down and put it on the wall. So there's some, you need to make sure that people get going in the first run. So when you work with ISO 25010, you will have 8-10 minute segments, plus the intro and so on. After approximately 1.5 hours, yeah, we will be done with this phase. And I think every participant has deserved a lengthy break after that. The hands are hurting from all the writing. The heads are smoking. Everyone is a little bit tired. And we send people off to a break. But what do you think? What's the result that we get after this phase? After every of those 2 to 3 people groups has been at a pinboard. What do you think? What's the outcome of this phase? Sorry. Many stickies, yes. Alberto Brandolini, the inventor of event storming, sometimes does talks at conferences that are called 50,000 sticky notes later. Conflicting quality properties, yeah. A lot of functional requirements. Yeah, I think some functional requirements will be in there, but I hope also quality requirements. A raw collection, unconsolidated list. Disagreement, yeah, disagreement is great. Why? Because we make it explicitly visible. And this is exactly what I want to provoke in that phase. Yeah? There are many, many implicit assumptions about the quality requirements in various people's heads. And those assumptions, they will differ. And I want to make that difference explicitly visible. Yeah, someone wrote pipe dreams. Yeah, surprises for everyone. Yeah, yeah, maybe not completely suitable. That's also not the thing that I expect there. Yeah, a wish list. Yeah, many requirements that are not measurable. And this is the, I think this is a good point here. This argument with the measurable, why I want to mix people up. Because when you have, for instance, someone from the operating department, from the ops department, who have worked with SLAs for years already, or with developers, someone will say, hey, maybe that's a quality requirement, but they will ping, for instance, the business person, hey, maybe let's make that a little bit more measurable. Yeah. We will have many conversations. Yeah. Good stuff coming in. Yeah. So the outcome here, yeah, will be a lot of quality requirements. Some contain conflicts. But the good news is here, from this moment on, the conflicting assumptions are explicitly visible. And I always say work in software architecture is a lot about making implicit assumptions to explicit requirements. Yeah? And as a base for explicit architecture decisions. By making that visible, that's a good thing. Yeah? And during the break, you, yeah, with the participants, you go, you send the participants off to a break, but you will have some 2 to 3 helpers as a facilitator with you, maybe. Yeah? And you go ahead and try to group, yeah, conflicting, similar requirements. You also go ahead and discard one by one duplicates that you will have. I usually put them at the bottom to show people, okay, those are duplicates and so on, or I toss them right away. Yeah. And so what we do is we build groups, yeah, stuff that's similar, where we have conflicts, where we need to find agreement. Yeah. And this is also going to be a helping point, yeah, for I would say the next phase. And I call that next phase consolidation. In this phase, we work with bigger groups of people. Yeah, we usually go with 4 to 6 people. So I want to have larger groups. And especially in this phase, a diversity of perspectives, of backgrounds of the people is totally crucial. Yeah. Please make sure, yeah, that you take care of this, because in this phase, I want the groups to talk about those conflicts and to find common ground. Yeah, and we can only find common ground when we have various perspectives in there. And they should make decisions. Hey, okay, let's discuss those conflicts. And maybe we find a compromise on which we can agree. Or we identify that someone was wrong, that they had the wrong assumption somewhere. Yeah. And this is what we try to find out in that phase. And I usually give those groups more time for that. Usually 15 to 20 minutes per board. Yeah. Yes, some time pressure is quite good. And maybe we will have some things where people don't agree, and where we can't find an agreement. And this is where, for instance, the flip charts come into play. Yeah, when we can't find an agreement, we note it down on a sticky note and put it on the flip chart. Maybe another group finds an agreement, and we discuss that later on. Yeah, there is no sense in discussing certain conflicts for ages and hours. Yeah, we need to move on. And usually, depending on the time available for the workshop, what I always make sure is that each pinboard has been visited by at least 2 groups. Yeah, so you can make that a, let's say, 40-minute exercise, or a 60-minute exercise, or an 80-minute exercise. Yeah, just make sure that quite a few groups have seen, at least 2 groups have seen this board, each board, so that we find a good, I would say, a consolidated view here, yeah, where people can agree on. And I would have another question for you. So why do you think it makes sense to work with larger groups? I mean, I said something already, but do you have any additional ideas why this may be the case? Mm-hmm. Yeah, be able potential disagreements. Yeah, find an agreement based on different points of view and so on. Yeah, so this is, in my eyes, really crucial. Yeah, please make sure that you have various perspectives in making decisions. Yeah, discussion with more points of view and so on. Please don't expect in this phase to find agreements on everything. Yeah, be good enough. I think if you find agreements on 80%, 70% of the quality requirements, you have already achieved a lot. I think your quality requirements that you have, even if we don't have an agreement on 30%, but the other 70% is something where everyone understands why they are like that and why we have chosen a certain measurable number or something like that for them. Yeah, and this goes a long way, and I think this is a good thing then. So in the end, yeah, we have a bunch of quality requirements that the team, the development and architecture team, can actually work with. But there is one more thing. Yeah, I mean, this is good stuff. Yeah, we can already go ahead and start working with that. But I would have another suggestion for you. Yeah, bring the sticky dots in and take a quick count how many quality requirements you have, and hand people approximately 15 to 25% of the number of quality requirements as sticky dots. So let's say if you have 100 requirements, give people 15 to 25 sticky dots and ask every participant. So every participant gets, in this case, 15 to 25 sticky dots, and ask them, hey, please mark those requirements that are the most important ones for you. If you want, you can also put up to 2 dots on a requirement. If you say, hey, that's really important for me, maybe even up to 3. Yeah, you need to play around with that. Yeah, but please don't go ahead and say, okay, you're allowed to put all of your dots on one requirement. I think that would be a little bit one-sided. Yeah, and ask them to mark their most important quality requirements with those sticky dots, because that gives you a really good idea about which requirements are really important, yeah, which are really crucial to your system. Software architecture is a lot about trade-offs, about weighing in and out, yeah, between various options. And you will have many architectural decisions that have a positive impact on certain quality requirements, but they may also have a negative impact on others. If you look, for instance, at the ATAM method, architecture trade-off analysis method, which is a process or a method for reviewing software architectures. And one point that you can, one result type in that process are trade-off points, architecture decisions that have a positive impact on some requirements and a negative on others. If your decision has a positive impact on highly prioritized requirements and a negative one on really low prioritized quality requirements, fair enough. Yeah, I think that's something we can live with. If it's vice versa, the other way around, you may rethink your architecture decision or you may run into trouble. Yeah. So this also gives you an indication for that. So to summarize, yeah, the phases are preparation, broad collection, consolidation, and prioritization. And I have already mentioned that at the we're now reaching the end of the talk. I want to talk a little bit about how to do quality storming in a remote fashion. The short answer is it works. Yeah, so that's something that you can work with. So this is, for instance, a screenshot from a Miro board of a quality storming, which I have done at another conference at the beginning of this year. And so you see also the dots and so on. So what you need there is an online collaboration tool, something like, in this case, it was Miro. You can also work with tools like Concept Board, Mural, and there are many others on the market. Yeah, so this works. Yeah, you can also have the top categories, yeah, and the lower categories. You can create easily some boards for that, so you can simulate those pin boards. And a thing that is very important, that you use a video conferencing software with support for breakout rooms. Yeah, so for the group work, something like, yeah, you can do that in Teams, in Zoom, in BlueJeans. Most of the major players have this feature by now. Yeah, and so this is something that you need as well. Yeah, you don't have all the room requirements and finding a suitable room, so that's also a way. And the big pro for the online version is, of course, that you already have those requirements in a digital way. Yeah, so maybe you can export them. Maybe you leave them like that as a form of documentation, or you rearrange them to a different board, so that easily works as well. And I've done it already during, so since March 2020, quite a few times in this way. So this easily works. The two things to keep in mind: you need a good online collaboration tool, and you need a good video conferencing software. Please don't do it in PowerPoint or Visio because where someone is sharing a screen and you have a single-threaded person working on that, that's not going to work. Yeah, that's not in the sense of this workshop. So you really want to have a good collaboration tool in an online fashion. So I have one last question for you. What would be possible next steps after the workshop? What can be an outlook? What can we do with that? Give it a try. Yeah, come up with quality scenarios. Yeah, I think this is a good point. Some of those things will be in a requirement fashion, but I've also seen people writing scenarios down. Yeah, so you will also have a mix of scenarios and requirements there, but this is also a good way as a next step with quality scenarios. Quality tree, yeah. I mean, you already have a certain degree of a quality tree, yeah, available. So this is something that you can add to your you can add to your architecture documentation and so on. And yeah, absolutely. You can also do this workshop in the form of a ATAM process and so on. Yeah. Right. You want to present the results and so on and so forth. Good stuff that you came up with. So as an helper to you, I have written an article on the INNOQ homepage about quality storming. And this is available in English or German. So if you go to the INNOQ homepage and you search for quality storming, you will find a written article, yeah, which is basically certain parts of this talk in text form, yeah, and also as a playbook, as a reference for you with some further details. So there's also documentation for that. And so if you want to get started, I think that should be a good starting point for you. And so from there on, I would like to open the room for questions. I am done with the talk by now, and I think we still have quite a few minutes left. And there is one question.
Hi.
Hi, Alice.
Let's get that question on the screen for you. How does the voting go in your experience? Are there many stickies with many votes or no votes at all? Or are people just putting a vote per sticky that is somehow relevant to their role?
I think it highly depends on the group. Yeah, sometimes I have found certain certain groups that have where a prioritization is really narrow. Yeah, but I think it depends on the domain that they are working in, and usually people use one vote per one dot, yeah, per sticky. But sometimes there are also prioritizations going on. So it highly depends on the group. And this is in no way an heuristic for something that's good or not so good. Yeah. So there is always a reason why people are doing that. And I think it helps to understand those reasons. Yeah.
Great. We have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to facilitate the quality storming differently if you are not at the start of a project? If so, how?
The question is, as always in software architecture, it depends. And it depends on if you already have some requirements or not. If you don't have any, just get started. If you already have an existing quality tree or existing quality requirements, you may want to put them to the wall already in a preparation step and say, okay, that's the status quo. Let's talk about that. Yeah. And then you can use that to get started.
Great. We have another question come in. Have you managed to get some data on how people are satisfied with their NFRs after running the
Non-functional.
workshop and using its results? Is it any better than the vote here?
I hope I don't have any data. Maybe that's an interesting research that I should do. Maybe that's a good idea to start the workshop with an initial poll and then have a poll later on. Yeah, I don't have in the means of data. I only have it in terms of verbal feedback. And the most positive thing is that I hear is, hey, wow, we start understanding why this is so important, especially from the non-functional stakeholders, and that they have learned something about that perspective as well. And I think requirements change over time. That's normal. And I think it would also make sense to run this workshop a year later again and see, based on the learnings that you have in production, or based on customer feedback, that you need to adjust some of the requirements. Maybe some requirements are too strict, that this is totally overblown for your actual needs, then change them. So this doesn't have to be put into stone forever. It shouldn't be. We want to continuously learn as well. But I think gathering such data would be an interesting exercise. Thanks for the input.
Yeah, no, maybe at the next year's conference, you can give us an update.
Yeah.
That would be excellent. Well, that is all the questions I see at the moment. If there are more, I'd love to invite you to head into the Hopin stage Q&A area and answer any more that come through. Michael, I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, and I found some very useful points for myself as well. So I hope others did. And I'd like to thank you one last time for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.